Hello and welcome everyone to season 7 of the Make and Decorate podcast. I am your host, Stephanie, and I am very excited to be back with a new season of episodes for you. If you are new to this podcast, you will hear any and everything about making, sewing, quilting, crafting, and interior decorating. This first half of the season, which goes through mid to late December, I have a fabulous guest on almost every episode. A change to this season will be the Chit Chat segment, which I started to change it last season, but there will not be Chit Chat on every episode. But when there is, it will be right after the guest segment. So if you want to stick around for the Chit Chat, you can. And if you don't, you can just go on your merry little way. So full Chit Chats will be posted in the Patreon group's monthly bonus episodes at patreon.com/makeanddecorate. The Chit Chats on the regular free episodes will probably be a bit more condensed. So yeah, that is a change for this season. And let's go ahead and get on with the guest segment. My guest today is Kristin Oldach, and she has a hand-dyed yarn company called KraeO. It's spelled capital K, little R-A-E, capital O, KraeO. Kristin's hand-dyed yarns are one of a kind. She dyes them herself, sells them on her website, KraeO.com, and she also sells in local yarn shops and also appears at special events with pop-up shops throughout the year. I want to mention that there is a video version of this episode on my YouTube channel at Make and Decorate. It may go up a day later than this audio one, but it will be there. There is a part where we talk about a picot edge hat pattern, and I hold the pattern up to the camera and I forget that I needed to describe it to the audio version audience. So I just wanted to mention that because I will have a link to that pattern in the show notes. So you can kind of see what it is that I'm talking about, which you have no idea because you couldn't see it in the audio. All right. Here we go. Today, I am chatting with Kristin Oldach, owner of KraeO in Chicago. Hi, Kristin.
Hi, how are you, Stephanie?
Welcome. Thank you for coming onto my show. I am really happy to say that we have met in person at the H&H America show this past spring. You had a booth there to showcase your luxurious and beautiful hand-dyed yarn.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm going to do a quick shout out to the two of my friends because there were three of us in your booth, and another Kristin from Woolly Petals and another Stephanie, which when I was like preparing for this, I'm like, oh my gosh, we had two Kristins and two Stephanies in the booth.
Cute. So cute. I love it. That's hilarious.
Yeah, we loved your booth, and I was very happy to see that I wasn't the only one having a hard time deciding on which yarn to choose because you had some up for sale. And of course you were ordered to like take names and orders as well.
For sure. Yeah, I always bring stuff for people to walk away with. You know, people want to like take stuff off the floor and bring it home with them.
Yeah, it's nice because then they can really kind of get the true, for sure, feel and look of how great your yarn is. Aww. So let's start by describing your business and what you do and sell, and then we'll rewind. Okay.
Awesome. So I'm a yarn dyer. So I guess we call ourselves indie yarn dyers. So I'm a one-woman show, and I dye yarn and I sell it to knitwear designers and just like hobby knitters.
Oh, cool. Knitwear designers. All right.
And crocheters and weavers and, the whole gamut. Any fiber enthusiast.
Yes. Oh, that's great. So now we're going to rewind back to how this all started. So when did you learn to knit? Because I know you do knit, and then, to hand dyeing yarn.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story. I started knitting and I started with crochet. I started crocheting when I was in grad school, which was a gazillion years ago. I guess I would say like 2007, I think it was. And I just started, I went to school for painting. So I'm like a painter by trade. I went to art school. And so I started like knitting and crocheting as like kind of just like I needed another outlet. And then when I graduated, my partner at the time and I were going to have a baby, which was a total shock and surprise. And so it was right in like the June or July of leaving school that I found out that I was going to have a baby. And so we kind of made the decision that I would stay home instead of going out to find a job because childcare is so expensive. And so I was like, if I go get a job right now out of school, because it was also like right after the recession. And so nobody was hiring. I mean, it was such a nightmare. So I was like, I'm going to be working for just the money to put my kid into daycare. So I decided to stay home. And that got me knitting and crocheting even more. And then like at the time, like Etsy was like really popping off and was the big kind of platform. And so I started an Etsy shop and I started selling handmade like winter accessories that I crocheted, and it kind of like did really well and it kind of took off. And so for the next 5 or 6 years, I was hand making all of these like cowls and hats and gloves and selling them to boutiques and having my own shows and doing all that kind of stuff. And so I needed, I'm the kind of person I always need like an outlet. I need something of my own to do to like escape whatever job I have.
Yep.
And so I was starting to get, yeah, exactly. I was starting to get really worn out. I was a one woman show back then too. I probably made like 100,000 pom pom hats. And I just never
Wow.
wanted to look at another pom pom hat.
Right.
So I got, I was like, I'm going to try and dye some yarn just like for funsies. And I got some dye and I got some yarn and I dyed some up and I loved it. And it was so fun. And it was like, the perfect like segue for me because as a painter, I'm obsessed. I love color.
Mm.
And, as a knitter and a crocheter, I love fiber. And it was just like a marriage, made in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of it. Like I very soon after that, I didn't think I was going to make it my job. But I very soon after that was like, I cannot make another bulky cowl. Like, I just can't do it. I was so burnt out. And people were asking about the yarn. And, so I was selling yarn on Instagram, just like one of a kind one offs. And then Hillary over at Nina Chicago, the yarn shop here in Chicago, my LYS, asked me if I would do a project for her and dye up a bunch of bulky yarn for a class that she was giving. And I said yes, and that was kind of like it. I was off and running, and it was great.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've been doing it ever since. So I think it's been 7 years now.
Oh, wow. That's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah, it's awesome.
And really that kind of set you up unknowingly for pandemic business.
100%.
Right?
Yes, yes. The
Yeah.
pandemic was like, what a horrible time for everybody, but really what an
Uh-huh.
amazing time for people who were sitting at home alone in their house knitting.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
business was, woof. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
That's great. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I started knitting in the pandemic.
Oh, really?
I always wanted to learn and never knew anyone who did. One of my friends
Yeah,
from Norway, I used to work with her, said she would, but I mean, like, then she had a kid and it's just life,
yeah.
and so finally during the pandemic, I just like YouTubed and I'm like, I'm learning this.
Yes, yes. That's how I learned too. YouTube, we could learn how to build a car on YouTube.
Right?
YouTube is so amazing. It's incredible.
It is. It really
Nobody needs
is.
school anymore.
Oh
Oh,
my
it's so
gosh.
funny. Yeah, that's so
So,
great.
yep. And so okay, that explains cuz I have the yarn that I bought from your booth,
Yeah.
and so this is the dried flowers.
Yep.
Whoa. Yeah. And
Great.
just the colors in here are very painterly. I was just
Yeah.
really enthralled with how they just I mean, I've seen a lot of hand dyed yarn and they are all very beautiful in their own right.
Right.
Um, but this yarn just really spoke to me, just because of the way that the colors you utilize bright colors too. There's some really bright ones,
Yeah.
and then with neutrals, which I love to do myself. Like I do
Yes.
that with even with my interior decorating business and interior design and like everything, quilt making and all that kind of stuff. I love, like, setting a neutral base and then like setting it off with colors like
Yes.
this. And
Same. Same.
yours does that really
Yeah. Thanks.
well.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for saying that because that's exactly what I'm going for. Like I
Good.
love like an interesting or like complicated neutral color that has kind of some spin on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also like adore neons. So I try to do stuff that you can play around with like interchangeably, like all of the neons that I have, you can use in some way with most of the neutrals that I have. It's
Mm-hmm.
just for like little tiny pops, here
Yeah,
and there.
because this is sort of a neutral, but it's still a color.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
and you would think it's a solid, but there are very nice, like lights and darks throughout this tone, this
Yeah.
color. But
Yep.
then you had like this could go really beautifully with like a lime green that you had there, and
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
really
Yep. That's
beautiful,
that's what I'm trying for.
very
Oh, I'm so
nice.
glad. Yeah, that's
So
great.
so these are the 3 that I chose, kind of in the
Love.
fingering. So
Yep.
I'm still I keep these out. I
Yeah.
look at them
Right.
a
Right.
lot.
I have so much yarn that I just
Uh,
use as like inspiration. I'm just
mhm.
like, what am I going to make with this one day? I'll know,
Yeah.
but I'm keeping it around.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's
For
nice. Yeah,
sure.
I love
Yeah.
being inspired by color and stuff like
Yeah. Me
that.
too.
So all right. So then the other thing I was wondering, so I'm pulling this one back out.
Yeah.
Do you experiment with new color combinations to see how they're going to blend and repeat, in
Yes.
stuff that people would
Yeah.
make?
Especially for like a variegated colorway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't some people love it. My personal preference, I don't love color pooling. So when you're knitting with a particular color, a variegated colorway, and you're knitting and the color, maybe like the pops of color that are in the yarn, they start
Mm-hmm.
to pool together as you knit. So instead of having like a variegated garment, you kind of have this area like swaths of color that kind of
Mm-hmm.
move throughout the piece. And I don't necessarily love that. There's definitely like great uses for it.
Sure.
But it's not my favorite. And so
Mm-hmm.
every time I dye a new variegated colorway, like I will knit a sample, just a swatch to
Mm-hmm.
see how the color is moving throughout it.
Mm-hmm.
And there, so because I want to avoid that. So
Yeah.
yeah. So every time I
Nice.
always make a swatch of like everything that I've dyed that's a new colorway. Like, and there are plenty of times I've dyed colors that I was like, this is it. I love it. And then I'll swatch it up and I'm like, no, I don't. Because sometimes it just doesn't work,
Yeah,
it's hard.
it
And
is
I'm
because
yeah, go ahead.
you're making this color combination sort of blind until you see how it's going to, knit
Sure.
up. Yeah,
Yep. And
that's
like
hard to
I'm
do.
sure any person who loves indie dyed yarn will tell you like there's been at least one time where they bought a skein that looked beautiful in the skein but did not knit up great.
Mhm.
It's yeah, I mean it happens all the time. And so
Yeah.
like then you learn how to like I as a dyer, like I have learned how to read a skein of yarn because
Mhm.
what it does look like on the skein is not necessarily what it'll translate to in a garment,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you kind of learn how to read the skein of yarn a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and even, sometimes looking for, shopping for skeins of yarn that are variegated, if they don't put up, like what it looks like, a swatch looks like knitted, it's very, I'm
Yes.
very hesitant to
Yep.
kind of go for it, especially if
Yep.
it's like a really, more high
Yeah.
end
Yeah.
one that making that
Yeah.
investment.
Yep.
And
And
then you don't
especially if it's
like
like
it.
wild too. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Especially if it's a wild color. Like I'm very
yeah.
attracted to wild stuff.
Hmm.
But sometimes I look at it, I'm like, oh, I think that's gonna color pool. Like I don't think I can do it. But some people
Yeah.
love color pooling. I've seen some really, really cool color pooling pieces. I just don't do it well, I think is what it comes down to. Some people do it great.
Hmm.
I do not.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. The other thing that I really like about your product is your naming system. It's really fun.
Oh, thanks.
So the
Thank
the
you.
the ones that I got were, and I think this is why, because I don't really get a lot of fingering yarns because it
Yeah,
is so tiny, and
yeah,
I know I could do socks with this, or I mean you can really make anything, but it's going to take a long time because it's so
sure,
like thin, and
sure.
delicate. But
Yeah.
Twisted Sister, so I'm like I have to have
Hmm.
some Twisted Sister.
Yeah, I love it. We had a lot of fun like naming. We have a lot of fun naming the colorways, naming the line. Like it was a
Mm-hmm.
blast. My husband is he does a lot of like brand identity stuff.
Ooh.
So he's really like the king of all of that. But he's
Oh.
also kind of like we've kind of, you know, built this little like system of naming stuff. I don't know if I could even like explain what it is, but I feel like I've adopted his brain power kind of in that way.
Cool. Nice.
So now I feel like I've turned into him, and I don't need him to name my yarn anymore.
Good.
like I
Yeah.
figured out how to do
You
it, you
figured
know?
it out,
Yep,
and
yep.
that's nice that you had that in-house
Yes, it
um,
is. It
marketing
is.
guru.
But I will say it's very much like the cobbler's children have no shoes. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Oh, I do.
I have to fight for that time.
Right? Yeah,
Yep.
I
Yeah,
hear
it's
you.
hard. It's hard.
So for instance, and it makes perfect sense too, because it's not some like just like fancy word that you have like, how does this relate to DK weight? And
Right,
yours
right,
really
right.
does,
Yeah, yeah.
because you've got like your Aaron weight is called Big Brother.
Yep.
You got like the super bulky, it's called Big Papa.
Yep.
And then you have
Yep.
like a mama one too.
Yeah, Mama Bear. Yeah.
Mama Bear, which is DK.
Yeah.
So it makes like in Little Sisters the one ply. So it makes perfect
Yep.
sense as to how to remember the weight of the yarn that
Right.
these are named, which I
Yep.
also love.
Yep.
And the other thing I love is the fiber content.
Yeah.
So several
Yay.
of your blends are merino and mulberry silk blends, which
Yes.
makes
Yes.
for a super soft, silky feel.
Yeah.
And talk about how you decided on yarn substrates for your products.
Yeah, it was a long process. It was a lot of like dyeing and knitting and swatching and all of that kind of stuff. And I realized, which I did not know before I started, down this journey, I was just like merino, super like whatever, like I'll knit with whatever.
Mm.
But I really found that like anything with silk in it, even just the smallest bit of silk, makes for an incredibly like durable, strong garment while
Mm.
also giving it like amazing drape and beautiful sheen.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
we have to cook the yarn, we have to heat the yarn in order to get the dye to bind to the fiber.
Mhm.
And I cook like low and slow. So I cook my yarn for like 3 hours on very low heat. And if I tried with nylon, a lot of people like to use nylon
Mm.
with their wool, especially for socks and sweaters and anything that needs to hold up over time. But the nylon would like shrink almost a little bit as I would cook it, and so like that was just a like no go, can't use it. So the silk was like the perfect kind of replacement for the nylon, and it turned like I have just learned that like I love silk more than I love nylon.
Mm.
And so like the drape is completely different. I feel like it holds up better over the years. I've had a lot of people be like, well, but I'd want to make socks. I'm not making a sweater. I want to make socks. And I'm like, this is the best yarn for making socks. Like this merino silk blend is awesome. And then most of my yarn, with the exception, I think of three bases, I use non-superwash. And that's because like you said about the dried flowers, I really like a painterly like skein. And so I do speckle, and when you speckle a non-superwash merino, the fiber takes it differently than a superwash. So it like bleeds a little bit and gets, like kind of moves around the fiber more. For a superwash, if you speckle yarn on it, it strikes right away, and then you get those really strong, like little dots
Oh,
of
I see.
of color. Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
that was just my personal preference, and so
Okay.
so that's a lot of the reasons why I use
It's
those.
kind of like how watercolor paint bleeds, yet,
Exactly,
but if you go with more like of a gouache, it's a
exactly.
lot of pigment and color
Yeah,
right
that's
there.
exactly right. Yep, yep, exactly,
Okay, cool.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the silk. Just um so I know about it from the interior design fabric
Hmm.
way, but for it must kind of relate the same as to yarn because basically fabrics are made from yarns.
Right,
So
right.
I'm guess tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that it's kind of a similar thing. And you're right. Like most people think that silk is so delicate, but it's a very strong fiber.
So strong. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
and then
incredible.
also the mulberry. So, another thing too is just that I mean, as just the same with cottons, they're not all the same,
Right.
and there's long staples and short, and so mulberry is kind of like the high end
Yeah.
of the silk world.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It really just
So,
has like the most amazing drape. Like it's
mhm,
just yeah, it's interesting. The silk is interesting. I admittedly don't know, I am not an expert on the different kinds of silk.
mhm.
But I do know there are differences, and I'm just like, I mean, there's so many different kinds of everything. Like it's hard
It
to decide
is.
what to put into
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
But it's good that you say you label it because that it is mulberry because people
Mm.
who do know will recognize that as like the best type of
Right,
silk
right.
because it
Yeah.
is. I mean,
Yeah.
what could in order to be called mulberry silk, they have to have the silk from the the worms that only feed on mulberry like leaves on those mulberry
Right.
trees,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they produce a certain
Yep. Yeah.
type of
It's so
silk
fascinating. It's so
in
that whole
their
process.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's so
that's really
incredible.
cool. Hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so that's great. Yeah, I do love the combinations, the fiber combinations,
Yeah. Thanks.
and I was going to ask you about the superwash because um it's great to have, I think, because people look at that, especially if like they're making, I don't know, baby blankets or something that are going to get washed a lot.
Sure. Yeah.
But what I mean, what are the I guess pros to a super wash versus like just a regular merino? Because like wool comes from, an animal that
Hmm.
is out in the rain. You know what I mean? So like it's not like wool can't get wet or be washed, right? So what makes
Correct.
super wash so much better?
Yeah, superwash is it's an intro. I don't even know exactly like when they started doing superwash. Like I couldn't tell you the year,
Hmm.
if it was 50 or 100 years ago, but
Hmm.
it really, in my experience, the things that like my preference is that when I use the superwash, so it's great for like baby blankets, it's great for you, but you do have to I mean, I also would never like throw my superwash sweater in the washing machine. I think like the benefit that we're supposed to think of it is that you can just take this and throw it in the washing machine with the rest of your
Okay.
clothes,
All right.
and like I don't think I would be able to do that, although I
Hmm.
have on accident. um but also like I don't like superwash very much because when I knit, as I'm blocking, it tends to grow bigger. The
Okay.
superwash does,
Yeah.
as opposed to the non-superwash, which like, when you're swatching, like it should be the same. Like your
Mm.
sweater should come out the same as your swatch, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so uh, it's and also there's a whole bunch of conversation around how bad it is for the planet, like the superwash process.
Mm.
Because I think you're basically like shooting it with, I don't know exactly what they're washing it with.
I don't
I can't
either.
remember. I can't remember the name of the
I'm
chemical
still
that they
so newish
use.
to knitting, but I know that it has to be sort of treated,
It does,
um,
yeah.
and it must be treated to make the fiber, I guess, hold up to um, the abrasion of washing. I
Yeah,
guess I
so
don't
that's the
know.
other thing, is that it won't felt. So a lot of times, like
Hmm.
if you knit a sweater out of non-superwash merino, which is something like I actually find this as a bonus. Some people
Hmm.
don't, but when you block it, the if it's non-superwash, the fibers will start to felt a little bit together.
Hmm.
And then the more you wash it, as long as if you're agitating it like crazy, it
Hmm.
will start to felt. And so a
Mm.
non-superwash will not felt. Um,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. So
right.
that's a good
I'm sorry. I
difference.
think I said it the wrong way. A superwash will felt. No, will not felt.
Well, not felt being
Will not
agitated.
felt. Yeah. So the
Right.
superwash will not felt being agitated, but a non-superwash will.
Right. Okay.
But I think that that's kind of a benefit when you're knitting and you make a sweater. You
Hmm.
know, I think it's for the fibers to kind of like to felt a little bit after you've
Hmm.
you've washed it, makes it more like structurally sound. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because the fibers are kind of like weaving together
exactly.
and creating
Yes.
like a whole.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and
Hmm.
I don't know if this is technically true or not, but like in my brain, this is how it works. Like I imagine that when with the superwash, like that, maybe that's why it grows so much when you get it wet. So you
Hmm.
really have to take that into account when you're knitting. If you're knitting with superwash, like okay, when I get this wet, when I block it, it's going to grow a little bit, and you kind of have to
Hmm.
like add that into your math.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Very
Yeah,
good.
I mean,
Okay.
I've made sweaters with superwash that have been like hanging off of me. It's such a bummer. It was so funny,
Oh, that is
but it
too
definitely has its
funny.
place. Like it is. I
Hmm.
mean, I knit with it. I still knit with it all the time. You know, Everything
Yeah.
has its
Yeah.
purpose. Yeah.
I think there's, some good points to why you would use it,
Hmm.
and how it would act better for the purpose that you want it to. And that pretty much answers my question because I just really wasn't that sure, but it makes much more sense to me
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Okay,
For sure.
great. Okay, so now this is
Yeah.
kind of fun. Okay, so um, I have some questions on ideas that you could give the listeners on what to make with your different yarns. And
Yeah.
okay, so my first one is a weird one because um, it's these mini skeins.
Yep.
So at the creator content, you actually this was in our little
Yeah.
what do you
In
call
your
it,
bag.
swag bag. Yeah,
Yeah. Great.
I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
so, but it's a mini skein. So,
Yep.
what are some ideas? Because I mean, the mini skeins are kind of growing in popularity, and I see sort of sometimes there's sets of them. And so,
Yeah.
what do you make with these?
So I have right now, I just built a kit, not just, I think around like for last year, I built this kit. It's called the Elven Shawl by Florence Sperling.
Mhm.
And it is like an intarsia shawl that has, it's got a base color. And then it has all these different shapes all over it in different colors. And so this kit that I built is
Oh.
actually like two full skeins for the main color, and then it's 9 mini skeins for all of the different colors in the shawl. And that is like, if you're a collector of minis,
Uh-huh.
that shawl is like perfect. If you have, I mean, and you don't have to have 9 of them. You can absolutely do it with like, 4 or 5 different colors too. But that's a great, great garment for having mini skeins.
Oh,
And then
good.
I knit a lot of socks. And so I love having minis around for like a cute, like toe, heel, cuff kind of
Oh,
contrast, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I love
Good
that. Like that.
idea.
Yeah. A mini
Okay.
skein with a full skein, you're good to go. You got a pair of socks.
Oh, you could do the heel and the toe, right?
Yep. Totally.
Oh, see,
Yeah. It's
good
great.
ideas.
Yep.
Very
Yeah. And
good.
20 grams is plenty for heel toe and cuff.
Heel, toe, and cuff.
Yeah.
Okay, 20 grams. Nice.
Yeah.
Which and you that's a good idea though with that elven shawl because now it
Hmm.
kind of reminds me of patchwork piecing with
For sure.
smaller, pieces of fabric. So now you
Yeah.
could probably incorporate little mini skeins like wherever you
Oh,
wanted, you know.
exactly. Like I feel like Intarsia is kind of having a moment right now. I know Amy from La Vienna Me made a bandana that I can't remember the name of it right now, but she just wrote a pattern a while ago of this Intarsia bandana that is so awesome. I want to make it so badly. But
Mm.
it's just like blocks, it's color blocking
Mhm.
essentially,
Yeah.
which is so cute. I love it. So yeah,
Oh,
like you have an extra mini skein lying around, like throw it in there.
very good. All
Yeah.
right. Um
Yeah.
okay, and then just so if anybody doesn't know what intarsia is, it's a type of
Hmm.
color
It's a
um
type of color work. Yeah. So there's
right,
like
color
Fair
work.
Isle, like those beautiful sweaters you see with the like gorgeous yoke is usually Fair Isle.
Mhm.
Intarsia is when you have like if you think of it in a square, like you have your main color and then maybe inside of that swatch you have one spot like a square or a circle or any kind of shape of a different color yarn that is typically intarsia. So you're kind of like instead of Fair Isle where you're doing like
Switching
color
yarns.
switching yarns
Yeah,
every few rows. You're like knitting, 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 switch a color, knit for a few rounds,
yeah,
switch a color, continue knitting. It's like one piece,
right.
one shape of color. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's so hard. I don't know why. I can knit Fair Isle all day, but Intarsia is
Yeah,
like, oh
I
man,
haven't even tried intarsia
it's
yet,
so
but
I
I've
don't
been
know why it's
hearing
so
it
hard. Yeah, yeah,
tossed around
yeah,
here, so
yeah. It's really fun. But for me, it's really difficult. And so every time I love it so much though. So every time I see it, I'm like, no, I have to make that. It's so funny.
But a
Oh man, it's
bandana's small enough to where you could kinda get,
exactly.
like, a little finish win from a more
Exactly.
complicated
Yes.
type of a stitch. So, like,
100%. Yes.
I'm in the middle right now of I thought it was 'cause they labeled the pattern, like, easy beginner,
Right.
and, yeah,
Famous
well,
last
it may
words.
be easy, but it's taking
Hmm.
forever. It is
Yeah.
it, I wanted it for summer, and now summer's done.
Yeah. Next
And
summer,
I
next
started
summer.
it, back in spring, but,
Yep.
and it's just a wrap. It's just like a
Yeah.
long rectangle, but to
Yep.
make those lacy little
Yes.
holes
Oh, it's
throughout,
lace. Yes.
you've
I'm
got
with you.
to you just repeat 4 rows, but
Hmm.
and so the 3 rows are fine, you can go whatever speed,
Yep.
but then it's that 1 row that does
Right.
all of the little holes
Oh,
where
yeah.
you have to pull the yarn through and then wrap it around, and then from the back, you gotta, like, knit from the back 2 together, and it's just like, it
Yes.
takes forever.
Yes, I know. Lace is, I love lace so much, but it is my absolute enemy. Like it just is.
I had
I'm
no
terrible
idea
at
that
it.
that's my first, like, attempt at doing lace, and I had no
Yeah.
idea, but you basically, like, increase it double, and then you, like, pearl it back down to
Right. Right.
regular or
I know.
something like that. Well, no,
I
you
know.
that's what the knit 2 together is, so you're
Right.
purling it up, and then you're knitting 2 back down to decrease it. It's
Yep,
crazy.
yep. And
It's
some people
crazy.
just like whip that stuff out. Like
I
they'll
know.
whip out a fingering weight lace shawl in, no time. And I see them walking around shows and I'm just like, God bless you. How,
Right.
like, teach me your ways. Like for me, I'm just like, that would take me 3 years. It'll take me 3 years to knit that. It's so
I'm
hard.
still working on it because I love the yarn that I got for it, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like how it's looking. Well, and
Yep.
the other thing too is it hides mistakes really well too, because there's a million mistakes in this, but
Awesome.
I've
Yep.
only had to rip out, like, maybe a couple spots that I really needed to, but all the other mistakes, I just let them
Yeah, yeah,
blend
yeah.
in to
For
all the
sure.
holes.
Yes, yes. I'm a very vanilla knitter. Like I'm definitely, after working all day, I go up and I like sit on the couch and I'll put something on Netflix or something and I want to be
Mhm,
able to like watch TV and knit. So
mhm,
like a lot of my knitting projects are like super, basic vanilla, lots of just stock net.
mhm.
But so when I get those more complicated patterns and I get a little, feisty and I'm like, I want to do that. I have to, I mean,
Mhm.
I am like nose to the grindstone, like nobody talk to me. I
That's
need
too
to be
funny,
alone. I'm counting.
right? Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Netflix
Yeah.
and knits. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, so well, let's talk about okay, so I asked about the mini skeins.
Yeah.
So fingering is also, really good for socks. Is there anything
Yes.
else it's good
Yes.
for?
I mean, if you're adventurous and you want to make a sweater, you know what I mean? Like, I love the way that the Twisted Sister look like the drape on the garments that you can make with Twisted Sister
Mhm.
is fantastic. And then, like, I've seen a lot of people make like cute little, like, fingerless mittens that are super adorable, you know?
Yes. Hello.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the idea. I was thinking of ideas of what I would make with
Yeah.
those.
Yep. Yep. Oh, I love it.
Isn't that so
Yes.
cute? Because it's got the little
So
scallop. Here I
cute.
go again with something
I
that's probably
love
going to be
it.
crazy to make, but
Right.
it's
You got
it's
to do
most
it.
it's mostly stockinette. It's just like
Yep.
the edges are.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You got that. You got that. No problem. Whip them
Yeah, the
out.
fingerless, right? And
They're
then just like
so
a
cute.
hat.
Yep. I love them. I love fingerless mittens so much. They're so cute.
Although this pattern I think calls for a little bit of a thicker. So I was looking and I love you have this colorway out there, autumnal,
Yep. Yep.
with the deep, like I love it so much. It's in the Aran weight, right?
Yes.
So it's the big
Yes.
brother.
Yep. But you can get it
Yeah.
across. I think I probably haven't posted it on other bases on the website yet, but I have a
Mm.
lot of stores that order that color in different weights.
Ooh.
It's a great color. Yeah, I love it too.
I love it. It's just like whereas I had a hard time picking these out at the booth, when I saw
Yeah.
this with all the other I'm like, that is a color I have to have. I
Yeah,
have
great,
to.
right?
Have to, have to, have to.
And it's so perfect at
So,
this time of year. It's like really, I mean, that is like fall, like spectacular
yeah.
fall color. Yeah.
I'm gonna put the link to your website, but I want everybody to look at this autumnal because it's just so perfectly autumn. You look at it and it's got all of those colors of the leaves, like the jewel tones, which
Yeah.
I love jewel tones,
Me too.
and it's got like the, burgundies into the plums to the like these goldeny russets. Oh, it's just so gorgeous. I love it.
Oh, thanks. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you like it. I love it
So
too.
that's what I was thinking, actually more so for this than
Yeah. Oh, that would be so cute.
right?
And perfect timing. You
I
got to
have to
throw on a
get
hat
it.
and gloves right in the
Yep.
fall.
And I
Hmm.
don't have to make fingers, so these are just open.
Yes. That's why I love them also.
Right? It's awesome. Knitting's gotta
Yep.
be fun too,
It
right? You can't,
does.
like, just be,
Yes. It's not
dragged down by
torture.
details,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. We cannot
So, okay,
torture ourselves.
fingering and, of course, DK and worsted, your mama bear.
Yes.
That's probably the
Yes.
most versatile, right? Like, I feel like everybody
Yeah.
knits with DK.
For sure. DK is fantastic. It makes
Mhm.
an amazing sweater. You can also make socks with DK. I love my DK. It's like 45% non-superwash merino, 45% non-superwash alpaca, and then it's got that little bit of mulberry silk in it to kind of hold that, to keep that structure and get that beautiful drape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've knitted with alpaca. Oh, I love it. It's so
Oh,
soft.
it's
But
so soft.
it is, like, very loosey goosey, so it's nice that you
Hmm.
have that more structured silks to
Yeah.
kind of, like, make it
Yeah.
behave.
I mean, the silk, like, exactly. The silk makes it sound like it's a fancier yarn. But like how I feel about it is that like, I feel like the silk allows you to not be so precious with
Yes.
your knits. Like, I know I said in the beginning that like, I would never put a handmade sweater in the wash. That being said, I have mistakenly done it a ton of times. And like, they've all come out fine. So I mean, you don't want to do it all the time, obviously, but
Right. Right.
the silk just seems to be like a workhorse of a fiber, and I love it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be so precious, with your
Precious.
alpacas, and
Right.
because alpaca is like, whew, that's luxury, man.
Right.
For sure. I love it.
Okay. So, and then the big brother is the kind of like the Aran weight, which is a little bit
Yeah.
bigger. So we're getting bigger. So
Yep.
in the
Yep.
weight, which is also
Right.
bigger in like the diameter or whatever of
Yes.
the yarn.
Yes, for
And
sure.
Aran is like considered like a chunky, right?
Yeah,
Regular
it's
chunky or
so
kind
I
of in
would say,
between.
yeah, so there's these like I heard somebody call them like fake weights once, and I thought it was so funny. Like Sport and Aaron, they were like, those are fake weights that like were just made up. Like, and I thought it was so cute. And I'm like, you know what? It totally is, like Sport is just like the tiniest bit bigger than fingering, and Aaron is just like the tiniest bit bigger than worsted. My Aaron is heavy. It's I would treat it as like a light chunky more than I would a heavy worsted, because it is one of those like in between weights. It's a made up weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a light bulk. It's great for hats. A girlfriend of mine knit me a hoodie. I'm sorry, she crocheted me a hoodie.
Wow.
It's like it's like an Adidas hoodie. It is
Cool.
absolutely the cutest thing ever, but it is heavy. So if you're going to make like a garment with it, and just expect it to be pretty heavy, but it's great for hats. I mean, it makes the cutest hats. I love it.
Yeah. And a quick knit too, because it's
Quick.
big yarn and big
Yes.
needles. So
yes,
you'll
which is
finish that in no
awesome.
time. I know, I love
Yep.
it.
Yep. Me too. Me too. I love a quick job.
Yeah, and super chunky is the Big Papa. And
Big
when I look
Papa.
at your
Yep.
photos, to me, your photos, I'm like, wow, that almost looks like roving because it's,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a single ply.
Single ply. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very
for sure.
pretty.
Yeah, it's great.
So
I
the
love
super chunky, same thing. You could do like hats
Totally.
and cowls and
Cowls.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
All that said, like if you want,
Blankets.
blankets are great. If you want to make a cute cowl in 30 minutes, like super chunky is your best friend. You can pump them out. Yeah.
Yeah, great quick little gifts.
Yeah.
To make. So
yeah,
those
so
are
fun.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to some tools. So regarding the knitting needles, when we were at the show, and you had mentioned these really cool, they're kind of like a hybrid-y sort of way to do knitting in the round, which they're from Skossel and they're called Flexi Flips.
Yep. I love the Flexi Flips. I don't know. I feel like people are either the Magic Loop knitters or they're DPNs. And I hate both of them. So when you get to like that really small circumference of knitting, where like there are, I have a set of like 9-inch circular needles, but my hands cramp up so badly. The Flexi Flip is like the perfect in between of a Magic Loop and DPNs. So you get 3 of them. There's 3 of them, and they kind of fold. They have like a little tiny space in the middle of them. So imagine a DPN, and like right in the middle is a wire. And so they're flexible. And so they kind of do the job that the Magic Loop does, while also kind of being DPNs. They're not so like rigid as the DPNs are, which kill me. I
have yet to try those though.
They're so awesome.
But I definitely could not get the magic loop thing
Yeah.
and didn't like it, and then
Yep.
it took me a long time to get the DPN thing down, but now I like DPNs
Right.
because
Right.
I can
Yep.
do it.
Yep.
But
For sure.
sometimes I do get that little laddering, which I'm like,
I know.
oh,
I know.
why?
I know. Curses. Like, I can't take it. I know. It's so hard. It's so hard. But it's like whichever one you learned first, or like whichever one you got
Mhm.
comfortable with first is,
Yeah.
usually the one you stick with.
But like this is like another option out there though, which is kind of cool
Yes. Yeah. And if you're a
to
DPN knitter,
try.
you'll catch on to this right away.
Oh, good.
Like, because
Okay.
the principle is still the same.
Mhm.
Only
Yeah.
it's easier
We're
because,
switching from one
exactly.
set to the next, but they're
Correct.
connected with the little
Yep.
cable, which is a good idea. I mean, who
Yeah.
thinks of these? This is
I
awesome.
know. It's amazing. Brilliant minds.
Right? And then there's this other thing out there that I have not tried, but square needles. What's the,
Okay.
purpose of
Yes.
that?
I have no idea. I
I don't
don't
either.
know. My husband knits every once in a while.
Okay.
And he's like most dudes, they like the gear. You know what I mean? Like, they
Yeah.
get into a hobby and they're like, "Ooh, I like the gear." And so whenever I take him to my LYS, he's always looking at needles, and he bought some square needles because he's like, "Oh, this is different. I'm gonna try this." He has not tried them yet. But I
That's too
haven't
funny.
either. Yeah, I'm
I
not
haven't either.
sure. I'm not
No.
sure what it's for.
Okay.
I don't know. I
Me
don't know.
neither. But they're out
Yeah,
there.
they
They
are,
are
man.
out there. Scasso, they've got them
Yep.
all. So,
Yeah.
all right. Is
Yeah.
there any other thing out there that you think is a cool knitting tool that you like?
So there's God, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called, but it is like a thing that you put on your finger, and it has two loops on it, and it's for color work. So like you can
Oh,
have one color going through like one of the loops and the other color going through the other loop, and you get to just like kind of grab it when you need it instead of holding. I hold one in each hand,
yeah, me
but
too.
I'm a picker. Like, I do continental typically,
Me
so
too.
my throwing is not great. So whatever color is in my right hand is never as like
Oh, they're both
consistent as
held
my
in the
left
same
hand.
hand.
Yes, but
Oh,
you have
yeah.
it's like this little gadget that you put on your finger, and you just kind
Oh.
of like, when you're ready to do the other color, you kind of just
Mhm.
loop it and you don't have to hold it. It is the
Oh,
coolest thing
interesting.
ever. I wish I could remember the
Yeah.
name of it.
All right.
I don't think it is this, but I want to say it's like a Portuguese something. But I think
Okay.
I think that might be a whole different thing. I think I'm mixing up my cool knitting tools.
Well, Google will tell me what it is.
Google will absolutely tell you what it is. Yep.
Google
Yep.
knows everything.
Yeah. You just put in like ring knitting loop.
Yeah. Ring, loop, knitting,
It's so funny.
finger ring. I don't know. Finger ring.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. It's like
Got
a
it.
finger
Cool.
ring. Yeah. Yeah. It's
That sounds
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I kind of like cool tools too. So I
Yep.
like that one ring. Speaking of rings, it's the ring counter thing.
Yes. Those are
So you
great.
wear it. I love those. I
I
love
know,
those a
they're
lot.
amazing. I do
Hmm.
too. I do too.
So, all right, good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you've got some events coming up.
Yeah.
We're talking in like where are we? But just about mid. Oh, it's Friday the 13th.
It is Friday the 13th. Oh my
Woo!
gosh.
We gotta
Love
watch
it.
something scary tonight.
Perfect. Yep.
Actually, my husband is so into horror that it's like
Is
Friday
he?
the 13th almost every weekend here.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so funny. I love
it's,
it.
I
That's
don't love the
cute.
gory horror, but it's so
Yeah.
isn't it bizarre how
Yeah.
like is like someone like your husband can like rub off onto you of like what
Totally.
their habits and how they do things or like what they're watching, because I would
Yep.
never watched
Yep.
like a ton of the stuff he
Totally.
watches, and now I'm like, oh, this one I think you would like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't look too gory, so I think I might like it too.
I love that. That's so funny. Yeah, that happened
I
to me
know.
with sci-fi. I used to like
Uh,
not be a sci-fi person, but my husband's a total sci-fi person. Now I'm totally a sci-fi person.
oh,
I'm just like,
cool.
I love it. Let's do
That's
it.
another one too. I would never touch sci-fi at all, and I
Yeah,
do it a little bit more, but he's definitely much more into the horror thing. But
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I would never have like gone the sci-fi
Right.
route, and now I'm
Yeah,
like
man.
so excited when the next Alien comes
Oh
out.
my God. I'm so excited
Right?
for when it. Oh, I'm so
Me
excited. My
too.
husband already saw it. He
Cannot
said it was
wait.
awesome.
He did.
Yeah. He
Oh
said it was
man.
as good as Aliens, like number two. And I was like, whoa, because that's the best one.
That's the
And he's
best
like, it's
one.
as good. Yeah. So I mean, he's amping it up. So I hope I'm not disappointed, but I can't wait to see it.
I can't either. Yeah, because I went back and started to like watch the first one, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so old.
I know. Oh my gosh, I know. It is so old. So hysterical. Yep.
Oh
Yep.
my gosh. This is a tangent, but I also have to say I love Predator versus Alien.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's so
And I
good.
always root for the Predator. They're
Right.
both bad, but
Yep.
I think the Predator is more cool.
Yeah. The Predator is awesome. I mean, I remember it being on when I was a kid because I had an older brother and just kind of like
Mhm.
peeking into the room to see what was on. And I was like, whoa, what is that thing? Like, whoa.
Right.
It was so cool.
It was really cool.
It
I
was so
love it.
funny.
All
Yep.
right. So, okay. So Friday the 13th, but this is going to be posted towards the end of the month. So the first event will already have taken place, but I want to mention it anyway because I want to, give that a shout out.
Yeah, so I'll be doing a trunk show on the 21st at Nina, Chicago, which is a yarn shop here in the city. It's on Chicago Avenue in Noble Square. It's one of my favorite yarn shops ever. The
Mm,
people there are lovely, and Hillary is the owner, and she was one of my first customers ever. So we've kind of created this really special relationship. So
oh, that's awesome. So
yeah,
she sells
yeah,
your yarn.
she does. Yeah, she
Ah.
does. Yeah, they're
You know
great
what?
over there.
I've heard of her shop. I've never been there. I've got to go there because it's just like right down.
They have a lot of fabric too. Like they do both. So
Oh,
they
do
have a
they?
lot of sewing stuff, a lot of fabric. They've really like expanded, their line when they moved into the new location a while ago.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, they have a lot of sewists, seamstress, what is sewists?
So
I don't know what
it's
we're calling
quilters,
sewists.
whatever.
Yeah, they have a lot of that stuff going on there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
This is funny because I think that I saw that shop on someone else's YouTube channel. There was this younger girl who she travels and then she'll visit wherever she's at,
Sure.
some yarn shops, and
Yep.
she was in Chicago, and that was like the first one, and I'm pretty sure this is it. I don't
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
her name of her channel, but
Right.
I'm almost certain it was Hillary, the owner,
Yeah.
and she was so nice to her, and
Yeah.
then she showed like of course she allowed her to film, and it was
Yeah.
just like
That sounds like
really
Hillary. She's the
a nice
sweetest.
experience. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
So
It's great. Yeah. I love them. Everybody's so
very
great over
cool.
there and they're just so knowledgeable. Like they just know their stuff.
Which is
They know their
always
stuff.
nice to have.
It's always great. Totally. It's fantastic. Yep.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Love it.
And then
Yeah.
what's coming up next month
Mm-hmm.
is Indie
Is
Untangled.
Rhinebeck. Yeah, at Rhinebeck. So there's like these little annex shows that happen on the Friday before Rhinebeck starts. So one of those shows is India Untangled, and I'll be doing that. It's in Saugerties, I believe, is the town it's in.
Okay.
It's right around. If you're going to be going to Rhinebeck, like you'll probably be going to some of these shows.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll be there that Friday.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All
So
right.
Friday the 18th will be that sounds right. Will be the India Tangled show. Yeah, so if you're going to be there, swing by and say hello. It's like a pilgrimage. I mean, so many people go.
So a lot of
Yeah.
people do go. I've heard of it now.
Yeah.
I'm not that familiar with it, but I've just there's another podcast I listen to, Wish I Knew How,
Mhm.
and she always goes to
Yep.
Rhinebeck,
Yeah.
and
It's a
I like
blast.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. It is such a
Mhm.
blast. I mean, I didn't know that you could get so many, fiber people in one area, but you can. Rhinebeck's the place
Wow.
for it. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
so
because
great.
are there any shows like that in the Midwest here? I can't think of any really.
There's a sheep and wool festival in Wisconsin.
Okay.
But I've never been, to be honest. I
Um,
don't know why I haven't been yet.
Sheep and wool?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know what time of year it is. I can't remember if it's like a fall or spring thing. For some reason, I'm
Hmm.
thinking it's a springtime thing, but I'm
Okay.
not sure. But I need to go to that. I don't think it's nearly as big as Rhinebeck. I think Rhinebeck is like one of the biggest. That and like the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival is also really big.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
but like, they have other ones in other towns, especially like,
Oh, there's one in
where there's a
Vermont
lot of
too.
farmland. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, I just had to go check it out here. So,
Yeah.
Sheep and Wool Festival, Wisconsin. They must have already. Oh, I think they just had it then. It's
Oh, it is in the fall or summer.
September 6 to 8 is next year. So
Oh, great. Okay, so
I
it
don't
is in
know
the
what this
fall.
year was. I must have
Yeah.
just had it
Yeah.
last week.
Yep. Totally.
Okay.
For sure.
All
Yep.
right.
Every year I'm like, I'm going to the Wisconsin one. And then it always gets away from me.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's nice. That's not too far away from us. So
Yeah. Right. I
it's
know.
nice
It's like
because
I
you
have
and
no
I are both in
business.
the same area.
Yeah, for sure.
We're
I
in
know. We'll have to go
we're
next year.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that'd be a
cool.
blast.
And maybe I'll see you again if you do a booth again at H&H
Yeah, I'll be
next
there.
year too.
Yep,
Cool. All right,
I'll be there
nice.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to mention or talk about, like your fall colors or oh, you know what? I also want to talk about this really quickly too, because I
Yeah.
forgot. Is that because you're hand dyeing this yarn. So
Hmm.
you make the yarn to order,
I
right?
do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I typically have stock on my website. I put dye to order because there's always a possibility that I don't have it in stock and I have to dye it to order, just
Uh-huh.
so people like know that it's about a
Yeah.
5 to 7 day lead time.
And that's not
You
even
know,
that long. So
no, it's not. It's not.
not
So
at
because I
all.
usually do keep like a pretty good backstock, but there's
Mhm.
there's always that chance. So I say die to, or I don't want to overcommit. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So and then I
Yeah,
usually get
yeah.
it out earlier than that, and people are happy to get their yarn sooner.
Yep. That's one of the things I learned when I was in sale is to not
Yeah, for sure.
overpromise
Yes,
and
exactly.
and then exceed expectations when you
Right.
have it early. People
Yep.
are much
Yep.
happier.
I
You
know.
got to set their expectations.
It's the best. I know it's like a model that people use, but I still fall for it all the time when I'm expecting something in like 2 weeks and it comes a week early and I'm like, ooh, love
Yeah,
this seller,
I know. It's always
every
nice. Yeah,
time.
me too. Yep.
Yep.
And so then are there colors that you have established that are always available
So
or do they change out?
yeah, so I'm a very like fly by the seat of my pants dyer. Like I will I know a lot of dyers come out with like collections and they're like, okay, right now here's my collection. We're putting it for pre-sale. I am not like that.
Mhm.
I just don't work well that way.
Mhm.
So like if I have a new color that I love, like I will kind of sneak it onto the website like a little Easter egg and be like,
Cool.
okay, this is here. And after about a week or two, I'll put on social media that I've added a couple new colors.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, like I'm easy breezy and I have a really hard time like retiring colors. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of colorways.
Nice.
There are a few that I've had to like, okay, these aren't great. They might be my favorites, but they're not everybody's favorites. And I got to take them off. I'm like, these are just not selling.
S-
But yeah,
What so what would be like okay, wait, first okay, sorry. Autumnal, for instance.
yes,
Is that
yes.
like something you just kind of put on there when the time is seasonally right for it, or is it
No,
kind
I
of
leave it up. I leave it up all
available? You
year. So,
do?
yeah, autumnal,
How
I
come I never saw
dyed.
that color before? Okay.
Yeah, autumnal, I dyed for Indie Untangled. It was like my show color for Indie Untangled. I think it was two
Oh.
years ago that
Uh-huh.
I did it, and so it was just a color that I brought with me. Sold it at Indie Untangled for
Uh-huh.
the show, and then I don't think you could only get it at the show. And then I
Mhm.
didn't put it up on the site, I think, for like another few months before I made it available to everyone.
Mhm.
So I do things like that
Okay.
sometimes.
That's
But
cool.
yeah, but when it went up, it was like everybody's favorite. Everybody wants
Yeah.
autumnal. Yeah,
I was
it's
gonna
great.
say, that's a
Yeah,
really good one, and I'm pretty
yeah.
sure, like, maybe this dried flowers might be a favorite too.
Yes, yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
People, especially this time of year, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
great.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the good thing of, like, knowing how your website works and how we
yes.
can order,
Yep,
and also that you're a wholesaler, so there might be
yep,
your yarn might be at someone's
yeah,
local yarn shop
for
too, and if
sure.
it's
Yeah,
not, then ask your
ask.
local yarn shop
Yeah, have them call
to
me.
call Kristin at
Yep,
KraeO.
yeah, for sure.
Uh, yeah, it's great. So I cannot wait to start knitting up some stuff here
Yeah, I
with your
can't wait to see
yarns.
it. That's so
Um,
exciting.
yep, and
Awesome.
let's see. I got myself all discombobulated with that because I'm like, I can't believe I didn't have this on my notes. That's one of the most important things.
That's hysterical. I love it. That's so great.
All right, so we've got your information. We know that you sell
Awesome.
on your website. I'll have the links for that. A link for the Rhinebeck Indie Untangled, and a link to Nina Chicago as well. And you'll let me know
Fantastic.
if there's anything else you want me
Yeah,
to link
for
to, like probably
sure.
your Instagram too, of
Totally.
course.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
You got it.
right.
It's just KraeO.
At
It's my
KraeO.
name across the
Yes.
board. Yeah.
KraeO. And it's
Correct.
capital K, well, not on Instagram, but just your name.
Right.
Your
Yeah.
company name is capital KraeE and then a capital O, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's the one.
I see
Yeah.
that. Okay. That's
Awesome.
cool. All
Yeah.
right. Thank
Thanks.
you so much, Kristin. It was just
Thanks,
so
Stephanie.
nice to be able to talk to you about your shop and kind of like get more of this one-on-one time, but then also like broadcast this out to all of my listeners
Yeah.
out
Yeah. It's
there.
been a blast. Thank you for
So
asking me.
it was fun. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
No problem.
Hey there, I am back for a little chit chat. I hope you enjoyed learning more about Kristin Oldach and her hand dyed yarn business, KraeO. I just love her so much, and her creativity is just amazing. The way that she is able to produce these color combinations in like a continuous skein of yarn is just mind blowing to me. And I have a very, like, I don't know what you would call it, just like a very kinship to her colors with those neutrals that pops the colors out of it. I love doing that, and that's what she does too. So and I did just place an order for a couple skeins of the Big Brother yarn in the autumnal color that we talked about in this episode. And I have a feeling that when I get this yarn, I will need to start knitting that hat right away. So sorry, Lacy Summer Wrap. This girl needs a new autumn hat. Well, it's been a while since we last chatted. Did you enjoy summer? I did enjoy the summer. It was hotter than normal, and I think I did spend less time outdoors because of the heat. But what we did enjoy was really nice. And I just like to one of the favorite things about summer is just, you know, I think we spend more time with friends and family at summer events, barbecues, and casual get togethers, as well as just enjoying the outdoors and flowers and trees and everything. I just love it. I love observing all of that. And I know it does sound boring, but it's just like a source of um, inspiration and relaxation for me. We did go on vacation to Northern Ontario, Canada to visit my sister-in-law and family for it was like a small family reunion. We rented a car and drove with Cooper to the middle of BFE called Cottage Country. That's what they call it up in Canada. And their cottage country is, I don't know, what do we even have anything that we call that? I think we just call them like lake houses. I'm not sure. But, they call it cottage country, and they have a lot of lakes with a lot of cottages, so the term really is very fitting. And, for 2 hours after Toronto, there is, like, nothing but country, trees, and they're beautiful trees. I love them. They're super tall. They're huge white pines and white birches and cedars and all of those really pretty trees, and tons of lakes, and there's large hills, and I think some of them are even they qualify as small mountains, and so everywhere is picturesque. And my sister-in-law's family has a beautiful home right on the lake with a sandy beach that goes right to their back door. It's so cool. And, we haven't been there since they, moved there. They were actually, it was 2020, so, yeah, we really couldn't, get there due to COVID. But, yeah, they did a lot of work and added an addition, and it's their full-time home, and in the winter, there's probably only a handful of them around the lake that are there full time, like year round. So it's we talked about it. I mean the lake is so gorgeous and beautiful in the height of summer, but I was envisioning like in the winter, the Canadian winters with all that tons of snow. It's got to be so gorgeous. And they, did confirm that yes, it is very pretty, very quiet, and just peaceful. So, the other thing was about the lake that they were on, the night sounds on the lake were really pretty. And of course, like there were normal sounds of frogs and crickets and stuff like that. But here in the evening, or there in the evening, there were loons. And they come out like at dusk and they're only out kind of like you hear them in the evenings. And I don't think I've ever been so close to loons in real life ever. They make this really beautiful, yet almost haunting, sound, and it's beautiful. It's just and when more than one of them make their little wailing sounds, they sort of, like, almost overlap and harmonize, and that was one of my favorite parts at dusk, was waiting for those loons to croon. It was interesting because as we approached the city traffic of Chicago on the way home, the city sounds and the traffic were just very jarring to hear. I was like, I can't believe that the city sounds are jarring to me right now. Like I'm in a little bit of a state of shock right now. And it's because that we spent a week only hearing sounds of nature for the most part. And then this jarring traffic and city bustling life, it was just like, yeah, we're back to life, back to reality. Yikes. So when you go away, it's always takes a little bit of time just to kind of like ease back into the daily routine of your work life. So another thing I did this summer is take the Core and Essence of Sashiko online workshop by Atushi from Upcycle Stitches. I haven't taken a workshop that I loved this much in a very long time. And even though most of it was solo work of watching the instructional videos and, practicing on my own, um, it just was the best ever because I received a kit before, starting the videos, and the kit had everything needed for the course, and part of it was the fabric, so it was the traditional indigo fabric, but this fabric is from Japan, and the quality was very high. It was just so beautiful and had such a soft hand to it, um, and so, I asked him about it, and that's how I found out. It's, his source from Japan, which is very special. That was a great part of the course and it made it amazing. But the piece de resistance, I guess you could say, was the very last part to complete the course. There was a scheduled Zoom live hour where Atushi, the instructor, answered questions and then he checks the progress by watching. So he watched me sashiko stitching. I had an overhead camera, in addition to like basically my phone camera, in addition to the computer camera, and so that he could see how I was stitching sashiko. And it was kind of like a critique and teaching lesson. So, yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking, but I felt completely, comfortable at the same time just because he's got that kind of a nice patient personality. He's very excited to teach new students, and his feedback was really spot on. It was great. I came out of that with just a very satisfied amount of knowing that I learned and retained now. After that online Zoom was really like the light bulb that put everything together that he was saying in the videos, because, a picture is worth 1,000 words, I think that saying goes, but also just one-on-one interaction is even worth millions of more words, I think. So yeah, that's when the light bulb clicked for me. It was great. I highly recommend it. Those were just a few highlights of my summer. After vacation in August, I was on a podcast guest recording blitz for this season's episodes. And I am doing my best to have both a video and audio version of the guest interviews. If guests did not want a video version, then that episode, of course, will only be available in the audio format on podcast platforms. So basically, all the audios are all the episodes. Videos may be missing a couple. And yeah, I'm still kind of venturing into the world of video podcasting, and we'll see. I do like it, but doing both the audio and video, of course, increases workload. But it's fun to be able to test and try it out. I did one of those free Audible trials this summer and will keep it as long as I utilize it a lot. I'm just kind of like, I got 3 months free. That's how they get you. They hook you with the 3 months of free audiobooks, especially in the summertime. And so, yeah, I'm staying with it a little bit longer. But another reason why is that, well, they also have podcasts and they've got the regular podcasts out there like mine. My podcast is on Audible. I had no idea. I mean, maybe I did, but I forget. And someone left me a wonderful review of the Make and Decorate podcast on Audible. I was just like astonished. So it was great. As of right now, I think there is only that one Audible review. So if you are listening that wrote that review, thank you. Thank you so much. It was great. And the other thing is that I had no idea of the interesting world of Audible. I just thought it was audiobooks. And indeed, it is not. There are limited series podcasts that are performed by very well known actors. And there are also short story books only available on Audible that are also performed by well-known actors. Like Sarah Paulson is one of the actors on one of these. I think it was a podcast. Honestly, I don't know the difference because these little podcasts that are acted out seem like the same thing as chapters to a small book. So yeah, it's just really interesting. I have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed listening to those performances, and they do a really great job. So I just kind of felt like I landed in this world of Oz like Dorothy. I'm just like, what is going on here? How did I not know all of this existed? But it is. It's like Audible is its own little fantasy world with all these little extra perks with their subscription membership. So, anyway, before we go, I really want to thank you for listening to this podcast. And I would really love for you to subscribe if you're not already subscribed so that you do not miss an episode. But also getting the word out to others that might listen as well. So if you could just pass it on, more people will be able to tune in and listen just like you do. Another way to keep episodes coming is to join my Patreon group. You can join as a free member, and I do have a few bonus episodes unlocked, so you can try it out. And also, if you join as a paid Patreon subscriber, I do release an extra episode every month to all paid Patreon subscribers. The more subscribers I get will mean more resources can be added for you. I've got lots of ideas like Q&As, videos, and getting your suggestions and ideas for future episodes, which you can always send to me anyway, but it's just another kind of nice closed platform where you can do that. And so just take a look at my Patreon at patreon.com/makeanddecorate. Finally, when you click on my Amazon affiliate link, it is in the show notes. It will pretty much always be in the show notes. And if I get enough link clicks to purchases that you make of anything on Amazon, including Audible, I can monetize the podcast that way. But I have to have enough of those clicks and links, and I haven't. So I've really kind of, over these years, have not really made anything from being an Amazon affiliate. Yeah, that's a little embarrassing to admit, but it is what it is. If you just click on the link, and also what I just found out is that if you even do an Audible free trial, that counts. That counts towards like potential income. Again, everything is in the show notes. So thank you so much for coming back for another season of the Make and Decorate with Stephanie podcast. It is so good to be back, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.